All right, let's try this a second time. Now that we've got
fantastic.
Okay, well, note to self: I was trying to use Twitter Spaces. For those who don't know, is a mobile thing, and there was a workaround where you can have a emulator on your computer where you should be able to use your equipment. So I like to use my really expensive podcasting gear, but it's okay. I don't mind because, again, with Twitter Spaces being much more organic, much more off the cuff, I don't really hate the fact that my AirPods, don't necessarily sound hyper professional, but it still sounds better than, garble. So thanks everyone for keeping us honest. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's kind of backtrack a little bit because I'm going to delete the other discussion right now. So why don't you tell us, for those who are listening and listening in the future or joining us right now, who you are, who is Ready Set Draw, and where can people find you?
Okay, well, my name is Jacob. I'm a team member of ReadySetDrawTCG. We're here on Twitter, and we're also primarily our space is YouTube. Our YouTube channel is ReadySetDrawTCG. We produce content on the game Lorcana, much like the people who would be the target audience of this Twitter Spaces. We really seek to inform the community and entertain the community. We're a group of friends, and we grew up playing card games together, and we want to kind of share that experience and fun with anyone who's willing to watch, and hopefully we entertain them enough where they want to come back.
Yeah, okay, super good. So we were just talking before we had our equipment upgrade about the deck you've been piloting, which is yellow-gray, so steel and amber, I think is what it is.
Yes.
So, you've got this setup. You're getting a lot of challengers on the board. You're getting to hopefully shift Stitch up to turn 4, keep your opponent, low on bodies early game. Once you get that Stitch online, like, what's your mid to late game? Because a lot of people in the current scene are running lots of steel. Like, everyone's running steel plus X. Yeah. So they've got access to, cannons, which does 2 damage, and smash, which does 3 damage. So your characters are also very susceptible to that as well on the counter swing. Yeah. So how do you establish a board presence when you're keeping them low, they're keeping you low, and like for some reason your Stitch survives? It's not common, but maybe it does. You're still kind of like naked on board, honestly.
Yeah. So basically, I have the deck list pulled up now so I can better reference the plays and whatnot. But so your early game, you run all the 1-drops of Captain Hook, Goons, Hey Hey, Stitch New Dog, Timon. You also have the Fire the Cannons option if you want to hold on that because you're playing against an aggressive deck. But like I said, like you were referring to, the goal is to get a Stitch Rockstar and have it stick. But if it doesn't stick, what other plays do you have? Well, Captain Hook Jolly Roger, of course, to get your Fire the Cannons back if you had to use it early. That's an option in the mid-game. He's decent stats for his cost. Hercules, as far as like protecting your other challengers from getting a crackback. And Cerberus is a big stat stick like we referred to earlier. Cerberus is a 5/6. He eats a lot of other characters by himself. He's going to probably make, with the current stats on characters we know, at 4 and lower, he's probably going to eat at least 2 other characters and banish them himself. And then after that, the top end really is that Mickey Mouse Musketeer, because what you're hoping is your bodyguard can establish enough of a defense to stop your challengers from being easily removed by their challengers. And if they were using removal, like you're talking about, then I would hesitate to think that someone would have enough removal to deal with Stitch and to deal with your challengers all at once. So hopefully if they were using the removal on your Stitch, you still have a board full of challengers that hopefully aren't going into anything and can start to quest on their own instead. And it runs removal, like Fire the Cannons and Smash, to help, counter remove larger threats that maybe our lower cost challengers can't really swing into that favorably. But that's pretty much the deck strategy, is to win in the mid game and not really make it get to late game.
Okay. In your testing, what have been some of your better matchups and what are some of your worst matchups?
So the better matchups are going to be things that have to wait. So pretty much Tibbs withholding. Any Ruby deck is typically going to be tough or easy to climb against because they're not really establishing any heavy stat cost threats, and anything with evasion can typically be dealt with the cannons and a smash. The hard matchups are the things like the Sapphire decks, because the Sapphire decks have the ward to prevent the removal of Fire the Cannons and Smash on your heavier characters. And since this deck doesn't have Jafar, it doesn't really hit the number 5 very easily with a efficient swing. But that being said, with the current card pool, Sapphire decks are inherently a little slower. They can try and get out Aurora Dreaming Guardian early, but most of the Sapphire decks are going to be focusing on one jump ahead and Mickey Mouse Detective, so they're going to be taking their time. But if you're taking your time against this deck, then you're going to have a full board you're going against. We haven't done much testing of this deck against Amethyst Steel, but I would imagine that deck, as well as
Smash and Grab. Yeah.
Yes. And we also haven't done it, tested it much against the Stitch Turbo list that a lot of people talk about with Amber Yellow and Amethyst Purple. It's really just been like a new thing. Now that Timon came out, it kind of gives a little bit of resilience for the challengers, which is cool.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're going to have to get some games in because those are some of the decks I like to play. Have you played against any green emerald decks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what have you played against so far?
So not with. Are you speaking with just this deck or any of the decks that we played?
With the deck you're talking about right now.
With the deck we're talking about, we have not played against what I would consider the most fun potential matchup, which is a Steel Emerald deck. A gray-green deck would be a fun matchup just because the Cheshire Cat can give you problems.
Yeah.
And also the Beast is Mine can give you problems if you get that targeted onto your Stitch. So there has not been a ton of like diverse testing. It's just this deck has been consistent at getting its win condition, whether it's a Goldfish scenario or whether it's like playing against the tried and true decks that we'd tested before Timon came out.
Yeah. Okay. So if someone's listening and they're, we're going to put a scale from casual to competitive. Yeah. Where does this deck fall on that scale, in your opinion? Now, of course, this is predicated by, you're still testing it and we don't have a full card pool. But I mean, you got some reps in. It sounds like you've had fun with it. So, like, is this a good deck for anyone, or is it more on one side or the other? Like, what is your analyses of this deck?
Well, given that it contains Stitch Rockstar, which by our metrics of what people like to see and talk about on Twitter and stuff, Stitch Rockstar is one of the more fun cards people are building around. So that's inherently, because it's such good card draw in a field of decks that don't have much good card draw. It's more friendly towards someone who's trying to be competitive, but I would not feel confident pushing it up to that like heavy competitive mindset. I want to grind games out and win spikes mindset. I would say it's more like, it's probably middle of the road, just because I don't feel confident enough to really stamp it as this deck is sweet and always good.
That's fair. I feel like the deck with some tuning will be really obnoxious.
Yeah.
You have a lot of tools to get in and then establish yourself quite comfortably.
Having 20 1-drops and 8 2-drops, giving you 28 cards that could synergize with Stitch Rockstar means that, like, by the time you get a Stitch out, if you've had a slow start, well, 50-50 chance you're going to top deck another low drop every time you play a low drop. And if you've had a quick start, well, you still have an abundance of low drops that can exert for Stitch's draw, by the time he gets out. So it's really strong. I would just heavily mulligan for Stitch.
Okay, that's really cool. Yeah. Oh, there's a soundboard. Wow. Okay. We'll play that a little bit. That's cool. All right, so we have a question in chat from BKM. Is this deck list you're talking about posted anywhere they can find it?
Oh, I will post it to Twitter immediately after this Spaces ends. I did not consider that.
Yeah, you should definitely use the deck builder and Lorcana, and then you can just easily copy paste.
For sure.
Man, the Twitter Spaces thing is kind of fun. There's a lot of little doodads here we can fool around with. Okay, so obviously one of the more important questions, what are some of the cards you're looking to mulligan for in your opening hand?
So in your opening hand, you would be looking for Stitch New Dog, obviously. Hopefully a Stitch Rockstar as well, so you're not having to put pressure onto drawing it. I would definitely look for some Captain Hook Forceful Duelists and probably a Hercules as well, because it would be really good to have a Hercules on turn 3 that you could then spin into a Stitch Rockstar on turn 4 that's protected, just in case you want to get that 3 lore from your Stitch once you do play him. Things that I would hesitate to keep. I would hesitate to keep any Timones. I would hesitate to keep anything like a Cerberus or Mickey Mouse, of course, because it's top end. A Captain Hook Jolly Roger seems very matchup dependent, and I would only keep that if I knew I was playing against another aggressive deck with Fire the Cannons as a needed card as well. But it always feels bad to keep a Captain Hook when you don't even see a Fire the Cannons, because then it just sits there creating this awkward scenario in your hand. But it overall, since there is the abundance of like 1 to 2 to 3 range, there's a lot of opportunities where even if you are inking and playing a low-cost character on the same turn for 3 turns in a row, as long as you've found that Stitch, either Stitch in your opener, you have a good chance at getting the scenario you want to start.
Gotcha. Okay. And then more on the casual side of things, we've talked about the deck and what you want, what you don't want. What do you think about the colors so far? Like, not necessarily the ones in this deck specifically, but of the 6 colors, what are your favorites? Like, what do you resonate with if you had to pick one that you wanted to represent? Put it on your jersey, tattoo it on your arm. Like, what's your color?
The thing is, I feel like it's really easy to say steel just because everybody's probably been involving steel or amethyst in their deck and then letting them carry whatever other color they're using. But I was a green player in Magic. That was like my biggest thing. And the color that most aligns with it to me is ruby red. Because it seems like it's aggressive. Well, I guess it's like kind of like red in Magic too. It's not a perfect analogy, but from what I've seen, red has the largest ink cost drops in the game, and they're big splashy plays. Yeah, they're big splashy plays, and nothing feels better. From all the testing we've done, all the times we've played casually together, nothing has felt better than sticking a Brave Little Tailor and then questing basically 3 times in a row unmitigated for the win. That is one of the best feelings. So it's I would say red is the color that's been my favorite so far, especially pairing it with Emerald. It makes the most fun. So I already know what starter deck I'm going to be looking for at release.
Red green. Womp womp. Shocking.
Yeah. Yeah. We spent all this time talking about gray yellow, but I got to say what I feel.
Red's going to be a real spicy color. All right, we have a question in the chat. Trey is asking, have either of us played the Princess archetype, more specifically blue-yellow? He's really been liking it, and there's a picture of the deck type. So it's the Moana Princess package for those who are listening. So you've got Moana, Ariel, Princess Minnie, and then you've got Aurora, Belle, Baby Aurora, Briar Rose, Dreaming Guardian, Jasmine, and then you've got Boat Snack Chicken, Maximus the Horse, Stitch Rockstar. What else are we looking at here? Let It Go, Develop Your Brains. So, get an A+ on math, plus 2 coconuts. So
that's for Belle. That's got to be for Belle.
Let's chat about this for a few minutes. Have you been playing? So we called it Princess Zoo when it first came out.
Yeah,
because it's basically a Magic Zoo decks were like best of in format, like the theme. Yeah. So in Princess Zoo, you're just bringing the best princess options you can. Our testing is a little bit different than this one because ours is like hyper aggressive. This one's got a little bit more challenging tools, and I personally don't challenge. I don't want to challenge. I want you to attack me.
Yeah.
So mine is just like hyper at turbo. Just play a princess tap. You are the one who has to stop me from winning the game. But have you played it? Have you had any success with it? What are your thoughts?
So our current list within our team that we've been practicing princesses with, it has not been successful. Most other decks, like Moana, is a win condition on her own, and it's great for like when you get the board and you get the Magic Christmas hand of like you have everything you want put together. The problem is we found that by the time you get Moana, you probably had a contested board if you weren't able to get an Aurora Dreaming Guardian there to protect your stuff early. So in our testing, it's been like mandatory to mulligan heavily for Dreaming Guardian. But we have not tested from this picture. We have not tested it with Maximus, which is an interesting include. and we have not tested it with Belle. I know Belle kind of ups your princess
Oh,
count.
really? Okay.
Yeah, Belle ups your princess count, but it also it's I guess for 2 lore, it's actually better than I thought. Just on its own, its ability could be considered just an extra. But isn't it a 2/3 if I'm not mistaken?
Sure, but who cares? It's a battery.
Yeah, it's a battery. So Belle kind of had deck building wise made us lean towards like, well, we're not really pumping out the items, but I could see 2 coconut baskets doing the trick. That could be pretty decent. So maybe the fact that we haven't had Belle has made a pretty big influence on our princess count, and Maximus would be pretty good because Moana lets you quest again, or lets you quest but not quest again, but it would let you get more use out of your princesses for challenging. So I could see Maximus being pretty useful as far as like reducing someone's strength to make it a more favorable trade if you want to use your princess a second time for a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the princess matchup for us has not been that good, but it's also just because it's a little bit slow because you don't really have that be. Oh, I'm thinking about it now. We've also included the rant package in our early builds of princesses, which we're learning more and more is not
it's
working.
Bad. Yeah, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah. So our results are a little skewed compared to this one, but we will definitely be giving that one a test.
Okay,
good.
So our list is a little bit different. So we have the differences are we have Robin Hood, the 6-drop Unravel Archer. So he's there to counter evasive. So he can swing into Goofy and kill him. He can swing into Pascal and kill him. And generally, by the time you drop him, he replaces himself with a +1. We also have Flounder, the 1-drop, which I'm not seeing in this list. So early game, I mean, we don't run the hey. So the idea is our list is just slap and tap. You just play a card, you slap it down, you tap it. So I'd rather have the 2/2 because you have to trade a body into me, and you sure, but I get a lore, and I get a lore, and I take a body. You get no lore, and you have no boards. I'm fine with that. There's not too much difference. Like we're not running so the Maximus package plus the hey package is definitely more. We're gonna attack you. Ours again. These are 2 different flavors of princess decks. I don't think because princesses are slow. I think attacking is a bad play because you're slowing yourself down even more in a deck that's already like mid speed. So now you're kind of crawling out because you really want all of your batteries to just be sideways. And if your opponent kills them, most of your batteries are 3 or less, so you just replenish. So early game, you're just tapping and questing. They have to answer it with either removal or bodies, and then you get to where you've got a Moana and 2 aerials, and now you're questing for 7 with 4 untapped, ready to go on the next turn. So unless they have removal, that would be 11 lore you can safely account for because you do 2 quests with the 2 aerials, so that's 4. 1 quest with the Moana, that's another 3, so that's 7 in total. You untap the aerials, and then on the next turn you have 11. So basically, with those 3, you have 11 safely. So if you're at 8 or 9 lore, you're kind of in a controlling space. And by the time you get those on board, you're probably past that point. So you can set up a really nasty board that your opponent. They got to do something. And swinging into Moana on average is going to be a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1 where Moana won't kill anything, but she's denying your opponent 2 or 3 questers. And that's huge. That is a massive swing in terms of lore economy.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of things in people's early testing, before you play the game, you really don't get a feel of it. It's kind of hard to imagine at this point in the game what it feels like to be in the scenario of like, should I quest or should I challenge, and really learn from that. Like it's a unique feeling in this game's mechanics of having that difficult choice. And I think the more people are testing, the more we're learning as we have these like cards being slowly revealed to kind of help the synergies like Ariel getting released and Maximus and stuff like this. I think the strategy you're talking about is really the way that it's kind of proving to be the more consistent way to get a win. If it's really what you're looking for, is that get heavy lore gatherers like the 2 lores and the 3 lore characters, and then have a big swingy play that has to be answered, or you just win, pretty much. So challenging is fun. It's a really fun way to play the game.
It doesn't win games.
But it may not be the way to win games. That's the hard part. It's a necessity sometimes, but not the strategy.
Yeah, if you challenge correctly, you can win games, but challenging decks generally don't do
Hmm.
well. Now, I will say the new Cerberus Haymaker deck we posted this
Yeah.
morning is actually built around challenging. So that's kind of the outlier because we finally have a deck type where not only do you have giant threats, but you have great one for one traders. So you can take out bigger things with smaller things. And then
Hmm.
your giant bodies just quest and your opponent can't kill them.
Yeah.
But it's like one out of probably 10 decks in the current space that can actually do it. Most other decks, challenging is not your win condition. Questing is your win condition.
Hmm.
All right,
It's almost
Lorcana
like,
Memes
oh, go ahead.
asks, any hypothesis on what Iago's full ability will be? Do you think it's an ETB, like when it enters the battlefield, you give a thing reckless, or do you think it's a exert this card, give something reckless?
So one of the interesting things about this speculation is we can actually look at a card like Elsa, and we can see with Elsa, the exert symbol is actually right after the word of the ability. It's right after freeze. And I know in one of the posts, it may not have been the initial Instagram post, but you actually got a pretty decent look at the ability name and the immediate space that followed it. So the initially my guess was that it was going to be exert this character, give a chosen character reckless until end of turn or during their next turn. But now that I've realized that the symbol usually follows the ability name, I think it's actually going to be a when it comes into play situation.
An ETB?
An ETB, yeah.
Yeah.
Because one of the problems I have, if it is an exert to do it, with a stat line of 1 strength and 4 willpower, it'll eat something, but more likely than not, you're pretty like Iago pretty much would be just a big taunt saying like, "Hey, hit me,"
Yeah,
and
basically.
that's all. That's all that would happen. So that seems kind of like a underwhelming card. Not every card has to be a rock star, but hey,
True. However, he's a really good taunt for like Baby Maleficent and Pascal, two of the
that's
really
true.
annoying problems in the current format for some people.
That is true. I
Taunt
just
was
would
a
have hoped.
really great ability if you ever played the WoW TCG because you generally used it to eat
Hmm.
little things that were super annoying and had high
Hmm.
protection. And so like everyone's like, Iago, I don't get it. I'm like, you do realize like he's a mass murderer against Pascals and Baby Maleficents. He just like flies in and literally eats them for lunch.
Hmm. I wonder if parrots actually do consume iguanas or chameleons.
Uh,
I doubt it.
Possibly that might hurt going
Yeah.
down. So I do agree. He's not necessarily the greatest thing in the world, but he's also really good at eating up like a Moana because she won't kill him
Hmm.
and she can't quest, which means
Yeah.
her ability doesn't trigger.
Yeah. It really
You
does seem like all of Emerald's personality is just being annoying,
yeah.
and that that is annoying, even if it's exert. It's
Yep.
still annoying.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's also an ETB to answer the question in chat. We
Hmm.
initially thought it might be exerting, but we still haven't seen any symbolism on the card that would verify that. So it's most likely play this card. Your opponent, you target chosen character gains reckless. He's probably a 3-drop 1/4 1 lore. I would wager he's probably
Hmm.
not much of a quester, but I mean,
Yeah.
who cares? Like he could win you a game. I've seen
Yeah.
what that action card can do back to back. The beast is mine has lost me games
Yes.
before or won me games if I'm the one using it. So if
Early on.
you have 8
I'm sorry.
options to get reckless on board instead of 4,
Hmm.
that can be devastating. I don't even care what Iago's stats are. Being able to just
Yep.
go, that thing that you have that can quest for 3, turn it off. I'll lose something,
Yeah.
but you won't win the game. And I get another opportunity to try and contest for a game win.
Yeah. One of the cool things too about cards like Iago, even if it is exert to chosen character gains reckless, it's kind of like a situation like where when an opponent knows you have a card in hand, they have to immediately spend a lot of mental space accounting for, well, they have that answer, so should I even play this card? It's like the Elsa issue where if you have Elsa on board, your opponent pretty much has to say, okay, am I willing to play this card because it could be the target of being exerted down and challenged into. So is it even worth it? And you can disrupt their plans just by its own presence. So even if Iago can't use his ability on his first turn, even if he's not a come into play ability, it still has value because your opponent has to consider on their turn 4 or beyond, am I willing to have this gain reckless on my next turn?
Yep.
And it could disrupt everything.
Yep. Also, sometimes it forces you to quest because you might not be able to quest. And Reckless is I like Reckless a lot. It's a really powerful ability. I do understand from the Magic and somewhat professional level that you don't want to give your opponent choices. But at the same point, questing is how you win the game. So being able to, on command, say that thing that could win you the game cannot participate in winning you the game. Even though you might have to trade a body for it, that's not the worst thing in the world. I'd rather have an opportunity to try and win than know I'm going to lose the game. Even if my opponent gets to attack and take something out of their choice, at least I can somewhat control that environment by what I do and do not exert to quest. And you can set up combos like you were saying with Kitty Cat, where you go, hey, I'm going to exert 2 cats, quest for 4. Your thing is reckless. Haha, you have to attack into a kitty.
Do something.
I don't want to do that. It's like, that's not my problem. And you're like, so Reckless is a very, hot take, I think Reckless will be a very powerful ability when we get the full set out and we start seeing competitive level decks. I think you're going to see Reckless decks do some work.
Yeah. On the scale of the other keywords that we've seen, I'm sure being a huge TCG person for a long time like yourself, you've thought about this, but it's in particular with Hearthstone. Whenever Hearthstone was a big deal and they introduced a new keyword every expansion, the design team kind of talked about the keywords like they had a cost. If you want to give a 2/2 taunt, well, how much more are you going to have to make that card cost to have taunt? So what's the value of taunt? What do you think is the most expensive keyword design-wise that we have? Do you think it's reckless, or do you think it's evasive? Or
it's evasive. It's got to be evasive for right now. The current card pool, because evasive is basically the fly keyword from Magic the Gathering. So you can't be stopped unless you have fly. And I mean, we've literally seen Pascals win games. You have 2 Pascals on the board, and it's if you're not playing red or gray, or I've literally seen people use a Let It Go on a Pascal. I am not kidding. I had a game I was playing where I had 3 of my Pascals online by turn 2, and it was just stop me. I just
Sapphire problems, man.
Just didn't care, and they on turn 5 hit my Pascal. I'm I don't care. I'm at 14 lore. It's over, man. So evasive has got to be in the current. Actually, unless there's a new keyword that stops evasive, it's nuts. Invasive is fly. It's overtuned. It's overpowered. That's what a lot of people are saying. That's not true.
Yeah,
there are answers to the evasive package. Yeah, well, I actually think Ward is equally scary, believe it or not, because with the right package. So, here's the great example: Green Aladdin. You play him on the board. If you don't tap him, your opponent cannot do anything to get rid of him until he shifts up to the red Aladdin. Literally, there's no way to target him. There's no way to interact with him. He's a non-interactive card. And a lot of people are this Aladdin sucks. I'm you do realize you literally cannot stop the shift, right? What do you mean? Because Ward says you can't target him with anything at all for any reason. Wait, what? Yeah. If I throw that monster, if I throw him on the field, I could sit there the entire game, do nothing with him, and you can't touch him. Uh-oh. That's not good. Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. The cool thing is about Ward, though, is it seems they don't, for the purpose of, comparing it to evasive when we were talking about, how much is an ability worth to the designer. Aurora may be an exception here, but she seems like a decently statted 5-cost character, and she gives Ward to everything else. Now, in the design space, she is not getting Ward herself, which is a huge deal. But her giving Ward to everything is, it's really, I think, the only thing that keeps Sapphire decks alive in the current little pool of cards. It's the only thing giving them a chance, really, is that annoyance. Have you ever played a game against 2 Auroras at one time?
I play her all the time, yeah. It locks everything out. It's like the
It's
worst matchup for Steel because half your deck is just offline.
Yeah. There's the first time I ever went up against two Auroras, I lost that game. But
You generally don't win that
yeah,
game.
but in the first time I ever played against a casually though against two Auroras, it was when I was also playing a Sapphire deck. I think it was Sapphire Ruby, and I was like, well, I have Dragonfire in hand and Let It Go in hand, and now I have absolutely nothing to do with them.
Yep.
Like I can't. There never will be an opportunity to do something unless I can get rid of these Auroras. So that's a powerful combo. But
yeah,
it's interesting to see that evasiveness being so powerful. It would be interesting to me to see what they would make a card cost that was essentially Aurora for evasive, like giving your other.
Oh my
evasive.
God, you're a monster.
But if they made it really, high costed and made it a late game play, so it's not just really swarmy, I think it could be really cool. I mean, of course, the design space is wide open, but that would be really cool.
I hope they don't. That would be awful. Yeah, give your baby Maleficent evasive.
Okay, what if they gave every character essentially Simba's pounce, where every character gains evasive during your turn? That would be.
Well, that's an offensive only tool, but that's to remove evasive characters.
Yeah.
So it's only for things that want to attack. Like you don't want your baby Maleficent doesn't want pounce. It's like I quest for 2, bro.
yeah. So,
but I like the design of the keywords. They're not new, but they're being used in unique ways. I think that's what's the best thing about Lorcana is if you come from another trading card game, you're like, I know what this ability is. But the way it interacts inside the Lorcana game space is not too similar from many standard trading card games that have been around for a while.
Absolutely. It's really exciting to me too. Like when you look at a Lorcana card, there are so many little things they can tinker with for the design. Like the subtypes of cards, whether it's ally or like as niche as musketeer, where you know that tribal synergy of like synergistic similarly titled cards can work together. So that's like there's so many possibilities. Like a musketeer deck could be super fun if they all buff each other with all for ones and stuff. It would be really cool.
Yeah, I'm also waiting for items that give anthem abilities. That one I could see.
Yeah,
like all of your X keyword characters get this thing. So I could see a item that says, "Hey, all of your allies get evasive." Like, but I mean that card would probably cost like 6.
Yeah, it would have to because there's so many low cost allies too.
Right, but that's the thing is I don't think you're gonna have like a natural board wide Aurora style. I think you'll have like keyword style anthems that say, hey, everything gets +0, +2. Like, oh my gosh, that's so incredibly good. Just there's a lot of flexibility. Yeah, I could also see an event or an action that says, for this turn, 2 characters get evasive. So something like the keywords can be played around with, where you can give or take away abilities. So that's not to be seen yet, but I think it could be seen in a future set. Maybe I don't know if we'll see that in set 1. We'll probably see it in a future set, like set 2, set 3. I would wager.
I would bet kind of similarly to the way Pokemon does it for people who follow Pokemon. Like every base set that comes out for a new generation is usually relatively tame with mechanics. There's like, very, very generic versions of the Pokemon that are popular. The splashy cards are typically very approachable for new players. And then it's those future sets that release within that same year or season or rotation that really spice up everything. So if this is the base and it already has so much diversity of card design and the decks can feel so different from one another, and we only have like 80 cards, and this is still like the base level stuff, it is extremely exciting from a deck building perspective and the diversity of decks perspective.
Yeah, I'm really hoping we start seeing some Pokemon style characters that say, discard hand, draw 4, like we've seen in Pokemon. Lots of pump and dump, because especially when you're low on resources, it's really nice when you can get a body and you can get a refresh on your hand.
Yes,
that's
a souped up Maleficent sorceress, essentially.
Yeah, I don't know if we will. the card draw feels a lot more akin to Magic.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then I think we'll probably see some tutors hit the table pretty soon. Again, all those keywords. The one thing we haven't seen utilized yet is the keywords on the cards, and there's still 180 plus cards to reveal. So there's plenty of time, there's plenty of space, but we've seen so many mechanical things. I think we're going to start seeing some like interactivity with the types of cards. So like we've seen the villain tribal with Hades, we've seen the princess package with Moana. Now I think we're gonna the broom loops. Yeah. So I think now is a great time for Ravensburger to start revealing, hey, all those keywords that you love, you can start building themed decks where, hey, here's villain support, here's hero support. I want to see captain support because there's Captain Mickey, there's Captain Hook, there's probably more captains coming. Oh, there's Captain Gontu. So it's like, there's obviously a captain keyword. What are you going to do with it? That looks kind of smexy. Like, because currently all the captains are in green and gray. It's like, oh, that's a pretty spicy combo. I like that.
There's the dilemma for deck building is concerned for like their perspective. If they're trying to make this TCG really approachable for new players who've never really been a part of a TCG, then I think they want to streamline that deck building process as much as possible. So having those tribal synergies like villains and brooms and princesses, that's going to organically feel like directions that new players want to go. So because the starter decks did not title themselves princesses, heroes, stuff like that, I feel like they're going to have to, I'm speculating that they're going to want to make the tribal anthem effect synergies more obvious, especially in this first chapter. So I can definitely see that coming.
Yeah, and I absolutely need a kitty cat only deck. So currently it's red green. I'm just going to play 15 copies of Tibbs and 15 copies of Cheshire. Stop me.
They could definitely do something like that. With Magic, they have Relentless Rats. All the rat cards. So you can play as many rats as you want, break the rule, and you can imagine like a Cheshire cat. Maybe something Alice in Wonderland hypnotic. You can play as many Cheshire cats as you want in your deck, as long as you have this in your deck.
I won't lie. I'm secretly really excited for a Alice in Wonderland deck because that's probably of the things that are available outside of a Emperor's New Groove deck, which is like my number one pull. Because we're probably not getting Treasure Planet, sad face. However, side note, Atlantis is actually one of the Walt Disney Animation Company's movies that's in the same range as all these other cards we're getting. So it's like, will we get
around Tarzan?
I think it was a little after Tarzan. I don't remember, but yeah, like we haven't seen an Atlantis card yet, and I'm like secretly hoping they're going to be like, oh, here's a Milo Thatch.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. But since we have Cheshire Cat, we absolutely have a confirmation that there's going to be Alice in Wonderland. So it's like, all right, we've probably got Alice, we probably got Rabbit. I want Tweedledee, Tweedledum, the Queen, the King.
Yeah. I think everything you've seen from Villainous has the room to go.
I want it all.
Yeah, it's real cool.
I mean, I feel like an Alice in Wonderland deck would be like the jankiest thing. You're like, wait, what? It's like, sorry, homie. Like, ugh.
There's the red green is currently the combination for Aladdin's, of course, because you have the Prince Ali and the Heroic Outlaw and the two separate colors of red and green. But Aladdin is my favorite Disney character. Like, Simba holds a candle to it, but Aladdin's the guy. And what's sad to me is we've already seen Aladdin in red and green, but we've seen Jafar in amethyst purple, and we've seen Jasmine in sapphire. Blue. So I'm worried that from what we've seen in the first chapter, Aladdin looks like it's just spread across the Lorcana multiverse, essentially. So
what color's Genie? There's a Genie. There has to be a Genie.
If Genie's not blue, I don't know what they're doing. Because Genie is literally a blue character, which kind of leans into that coloration regardless. But then again, Cruella is a green card in this, and it makes a lot of sense. So
I was going to say, I feel like Genie could actually be in green.
Yeah, if he's disruptive in some way. I think if there, like you were referenced earlier, personally, it's technically a conversation for a different time. I'm not a huge fan of the idea of having tutors in this game to search out cards. But if there is a character that would be so good for tutors, it would be Genie.
Oh, it's Genie.
Because you make your wish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have some kind of lore cost and then get a tutor out of it.
Oh yeah, I would love to see. I mean, logically, Genie should be in blue, but I could also see him in green because he's not a fighter, so he's not red or steel, and he's not. He could be in yellow. He's very friendly. I could see that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we also don't have a yellow variation of an Aladdin character at this point, so maybe. But like, I would kind of hope with the Heroic Outlaw red and Aladdin Prince Ali green, you're kind of wanting to stay in that realm if you're playing Aladdin. So it's like Genie probably needs to be in that color spread, that color pie, because generally your two things that go with Aladdin are Abu and Genie. And I'm willing to bet $100 million Abu's in red. He's probably like a cheap little body that does something really obnoxious. Or he could be in green. I can see that too. And then Genie's got to be in there somewhere.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Okay, well, we've practically hit our hour mark, so we don't want to go too terribly long, because the idea behind Twitter Spaces is just kind of a short form hangout, not necessarily a 3-hour long tour. So let's wrap this up, because I've got some Ben & Jerry's ice cream I want to get into my belly.
Nice.
But tell everybody a little bit more about yourself. Where can they find you? Plug your socials. It's been great to have you on. We're definitely doing this again. This was so much fun talking about.
I appreciate it.
Cards
to be on.
Cards websites.
Yeah. So we are. If you can find our Twitter handle in the Twitter Spaces here, just ReadySetDrawTCG. We are the same name on YouTube. We try to keep it consistent. We have a deck tech for Amethyst Steel on YouTube right now that we're pretty proud of, but the upcoming thing that we're really looking forward to giving the community are some Lorcana lessons, a way to teach the game to people who are brand new to TCGs or have come from an experience with Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Hearthstone, stuff like that. We're proud to make gameplay videos in the future and inform and entertain the community. My name is Jacob. We have team members Alex, Tyler, and Anthony. Been friends for a long time, and we look forward to inviting you in on the ride.
Yeah, and Lorcana Memes is asking, will these shows be weekly? Probably. Like it's definitely been a beta test. We did one last week, and it was really successful. We're doing one right now. It's been very successful. So, I mean, until further notice, I get Mondays off, and I don't really mind talking about Lorcana for 30, 40 minutes on a Monday afternoon. That's really fun. So yeah, we'll definitely have Ready Set Draw come on back, but check them out. They've got great content, super fun people to talk to, very knowledgeable, and I think you guys are going to have a lot of really good content coming out over the course of building up to the actual release. Before we go on out, and I know you got to go, I got to go. Give us a quick preview. What's one of the next things you're going to be talking about, so we can have some excitement and expectation for your next content drop?
Episode 1's in production right now of Lorcana Lessons, and it is understanding a Lorcana card, where it comes down to all the symbols, stats, numbers, functions of the card. So we're comparing it, breaking it down, so hopefully anybody who's never seen a Lorcana card in their life but has shown it for the first time, after watching that video, would be an expert on explaining it to anyone they know. Okay.
Then last question before we get out of here. What does Pot of Greed do?
Pot of Greed, it technically does everything. If you
okay.
Yeah. Pot of Greed draws 2, and it draws more Pot of Greeds.
Oh, okay. I heard you can assign it to attack mode, and you get to draw 3 cards from your deck. So I guess that's pretty good.
Hold on a second. I'm reading it, and that is exactly what it is.
All right. Well, thank you to Ready Set Draw for joining us. Thank you everyone who listened in the live stream, and thank you to everyone who listens in the future. If you enjoyed this, definitely follow Ready Set Draw, follow Lorcana Cast, and we will see you all next week. Have a wonderful time, and thanks everybody.